Okay, so I want to talk about a few reasons why I'm not a feminist anymore, or why I don't support feminism, and just a small sort of background. Basically, I grew up sort of acting flamboyant, so I was sort of rejected by men. So I became sort of a feminist by default, right? I always grew up. I know all my friends were girls growing up, and then I sort of echoed all of the same sort of narratives, those sort of fair feminist narratives, kind of the I hate men type of thing. But slowly, I just started, drifting away from feminism because of these various things that I've started to realize. Okay, so I wrote it down, and the first one is hypocritical. Okay, so um, when I mean hypocritical, I mean things like a few, maybe a decade ago, about a decade ago, it was very sort of popular to talk about how men sort of fetishize lesbians. Okay, um, and this came a lot from sort of feminists. Okay, and we were almost experts on how men were fetishizing lesbians, right? But all of a sudden, there's this sort of explosion in popularity of BL, right? This boy love yoy thing from women. And it has. And so how did how did how are you experts on fetishizing sort of gay identified people and then just arbitrarily, flippantly started doing the same thing but on another level, right? So it's like you were not that different from men, I suppose, because there is lots of fetishization coming out of this whole BL boy love thing in two extreme levels, right? You know, pairing real people, right? Making like erotic graphic fan fiction of real people, just in like erotic this gayification of like these bromances, like if there's a slightest like friendship or affection, these BL cultists, push it into like homoerotic zones and, you know, and just fetishizing, objectifying gay identified men, like how men did. Okay. And then there's other thing in that same sort of aspect. There was this celebrity, I think their name is Noah Centino, and they were doing like a TikTok challenge, like an acting challenge, where you guess you're pretending like you're acting with them, and they were looking, yeah, admittedly a little disheveled, right? But then all the comments were like, there was comments like, "I can't believe I used to be attracted to him." It's again that same thing where feminists and a lot of women were experts on how, you know, you guys basically whine a lot about, how men will objectify you and beauty standards and everything around that. But here I just noticed it wasn't just that. It's this constant trend and pattern of that. Like, and you guys, like, there was no, like, if that was flipped, it would have been this, whining where you're sort of, you know, judging this person's appearance, treating them like this disposable object, right? You see this with a lot of, male pop stars as well. It's like you drink them like a bottle of Coke and toss the can. But then you're taking it to the next level by like degrading and judging these people. But I guess it's okay because it's a man. But when it's a woman, it's like heresy and heinous. Like, basically, I just realized that like women are not that different from men. And it's like, yeah, there was this sort of I guess, power or influence difference. But soon as you got leverage, you just acted just like men. So I guess it's not a men thing, it's just a people thing. Anatomy isn't that, it doesn't really mean much. Okay, it's like a technicality because as soon as you have that opportunity, you behave the same way. Okay, and so that's like one big knock to feminism to me. Then I wrote down women's supremacy. Okay, so feminism says like it's for equality and this that we're fighting for equality and that type of thing, but that's not what it seems like. Um, it seems like you guys are fighting hard for like women's supremacy, right? One way you see this is with that whole thing where it was like this believe women thing. Hmm? It's like you're trying to code or frame yourself as these, it's like you're self-deifying yourself. You're giving yourself this special status. Believe women, believe all women. That makes no sense. It's like almost this manipulative, gaslighting, bullying thing. Because why does it even have to be explained? But women lie all the time. Not because they're women, just because people lie all the time. There's documentation going back forever. Yes, including about rape. It happens. It's not even uncommon. I don't think it's common, but it's not. I mean, it happens consistently. Okay, so how are you trying to give your? It's like you wanted this special status, like this immunity or something, or like it was just nonsensical. It was almost spooky. Like it's like yes, it women do rarely sort of. I mean, most of the time women don't lie about rape. There's not really this strong incentive, but that would equate to saying like give women the benefit of the doubt. Like yes, something leaning more towards women within that specific occurrence or context, but not to the point of believe women 100% of the time. Like that, what happened to innocent before proven guilty and all of those things, it's just insane. And women, a lot of women were really going hard for that. I don't think it was like all feminist or even necessarily people who identify as feminists, but it was a lot of feminists. It was a lot of women. And then feminists, you guys aren't really exactly like calling them out. You're just kind of standing by the sidelines letting it happen. But it's like that's just women's supremacy. Like, okay, and then it gets even worse to the point of like I keep seeing this another trend and pattern of like men being accused of rape and their lives just being destroyed, but not just accused of rape. I mean, there's been several occurrences of men having consensual sex with women, and I guess the women simply didn't like it or something. I don't know. I just don't know how you can have consensual sex and then say you were raped. But that has been happening, and then the more they destroy the man's life, like with like no questions asked. But the weirdest thing about it is, it's like there's this sense from these women that you guys kind of know that's happening, but it's almost like this validation power trip thing where, right, you're being treated like some sacred deity where you point and then something is just, they vanquish that person. You know, it's not about rape, it's not about, it's like a power trip. Like you're getting what you want. Women being treated like these supreme sacred deities or something, all powerful beings or something. It's like this weird deity complex. That's what you're more concerned about. because you started getting away with that, and then so it became not about, holding men accountable or rape culture or rape, but it just started coming about. You got addicted to the power trips, the validation, this sort of dream confirmation, right? You guys are like dreaming that you are special or something, which I kind of understand. Like, I don't think it's like this evil conspiracy. Everyone kind of wanted to be special because it's like, I mean, it's delusional, but it's like this protective mechanism, right? Everyone does want immunity in a sense, but that's not fair or possible. And it's not even about that anymore. Again, it's just the power tripping. Okay. But you can see things like that. You just want women supremacy. And there was other things like there was some famous person on Twitter, they were like saying something like, yeah, if a woman is like sexually assaulted, it should just always be like third degree something. But that doesn't make sense. It's like saying like if a woman is killed, it should always be third degree murder. You know how we have like manslaughter, first degree, second degree? They were saying like it should always be third degree. Huh? It's like demanding this special treatment. That's not equality. It's not even based in reality. It's like nonsensical, delusional, power tripping, weird things. Like, I don't know, there's something very, you know, off about that. But then you also see this sort of women supremacy vibes, like with this sort of push in the media, right? It's like this weird overcorrection thing that's going on where, the man is always evil or dumb and the women are like always like perfect and super strong. Like one example is like She-Hulk. Like there was this scene where they like the Hulk threw a boulder and then She-Hulk threw a boulder and she threw it farther than the Hulk. Like that just doesn't make sense because the Hulk is like bigger than the She-Hulk. And like I don't like how they like made her skinnier. Like the She-Hulk was supposed to be bigger, but they have that sort of, I don't know, anorexia is coming back in or something. But it's like that, like where it's like nonsensical. Like women are putting. It's like you're throwing men under the bus to put push women up, type of thing. Okay, and it's like you're drawing men under the bus to make women look good and vilifying men and making men look bad. But it's like, again, it has that same thing where it's like, so it's not like, I mean, that's what men, this more patriarchal leaning media has been for women for decades, if not centuries. But then again, it's like I just feel that's bad about that because it seems like, again, it's just a people thing because as soon as you have got the same opportunity, you're doing the same thing. It's like almost like sometimes I feel like it's almost was like you see the same thing with like all these other groups and populations. Like so the Jews whine about the Holocaust, but as soon as they got into these positions of influence, they're massacring people in Palestine. And then I also seen like the same thing with like black identified people doing a lot of the same behaviors that we considered white, where I almost understand, I feel less, I kind of understand why white identified people were sort of oppressing black identified people in a sense, because it's like you guys just do the same things. Like they weren't totally off base. It's like a power struggle. And then it's like all these different groups sort of played, you all played sort of nice and innocent and we're poor little victims. As soon as they're like, okay, well, maybe we are the bad guys and let's give you this and that. And it's like, as soon as you get it, you're like doing the same thing. It's just, I'm sorry, it just seems like people can be corrupt and off and whatever you want to call it. It's like, huh? And then there's other little aspects of that where it's like when you watch women centric shows, there was like one show they were like, women are great. No, when being a woman is just mature anatomy. Uh, you're saying if you're saying women are great, you're saying every single woman is great, even though there's so many horrible women. Not because they're women, because they're just horrible people. Like how are you? You're how all of this media is like presenting women like it's a character trait, but a benevolent character. But it's just anatomy. Like, but that's like this women supremacy propaganda type of thing. Not just that, but it's like this self propaganda in a sense. But then it's having an effect because then you engage these women who think they are special and better than other people. But anyways, there's a women supremacy vibe going on here. Okay, and then another thing I wrote down was weaponizing tragedy. Okay, so this seems like a lot of feminists, a lot of women cultists, right? A women cultist is just someone who, that's what's happening a lot. All these different identity tribes have become cults. If you treat this sort of non-character traits as like this primary benevolent character trait or identity, you're a cultist, right? But a lot of these women cultists are, you know, you guys weaponize tragedy, okay? Where, um, first thing that's happening is there's this almost since like let's use other cults as an example, like the people with Amerindian origin, American Indian origins, the tribal caste. Okay, like how they'll be like missing indigenous women, like that they like that these women are going missing because they're it's like these cult sacrifices. These cults sacrifice members of their own cult to sort of as this almost like battery source to recharge this sort of victimhood brand, right? Um, because you can tell because they they just sort of before the body's even cold, they pick it up and they just wield it and weaponize it for like attention and resources and handouts because it's never about solutions or are preventing it. It's just missing indigenous women, right? In the same way, like black identified people, like when black identified people are killed by cops because it recharges that victimhood brand. It's like, see, we are victims. They're sacrificing members of their own cult to recharge that victimhood brand, right? And women do the same thing. You guys desire for women to experience tragedy and death because then you wield it and weaponize it as sort of justification for your status, position, and these demands and resources and things like that. Okay. Or a lot of you weaponize rape, for example. Um, you almost have like this. I mean, like women being raped is almost like crack for a lot of you. Like you just get so high off it, like see, and it just justifies everything. And there's this odd thing about it where it's like most men are not going to rape women, but then you look to men. You hold every single man accountable for what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% of the population is going to do. Like that doesn't really make sense, but it doesn't matter because there's that utility there. It's like this weird guilt tripping thing, but it's kind of like sick because it's like a desire for it in the same sense, right? But then it's even more extreme because now we've reached this place where it's like not even real lives are not even required, right? You guys, one of the reasons you guys love these shows like CSI and Law and Order and like serial killer documentaries, those shows about murderers, women being murdered, and serial killers, and like missing women, and blah 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 is because you it's like you're self tragedizing yourself, where you it's justification. It's like people watch Handmaid's Tale, and like it's like this self it's like wallowing in self pity, where you guys watch Handmaid's Tale, and then it's your justification. You make these demands, you make these resources for these resources and handouts and all these things. It's like that didn't happen to you. That's a fictional TV show. You just ordered DoorDash to watch it. Like you don't live in Gilead, but a lot of you act like you live in Gilead because you weaponize tragedy. Like it's just like our lives are so hard, and this, that, and the fourth. It's kind of the same way like how Black identified people like slavery movies. Like I remember one person was like, "Yeah, see, my dad's great grandfather was enslaved." It's like, wow, you're really like, why do you want to be like that? Ended over 200 years ago. You've never experienced that. It has nothing to do with your lot in life. Take accountability for your lot in life. And I'm not saying take accountability for rape. I know people try to weasel, try to rat, and find cracks to try to. That's just another deflection tactic. But I mean, in a sense, there are. I mean, like, I don't really care about any of that because it's like, again, women used to walk around topless in sort of pre-modern societies. If rape was an issue, that wouldn't be, they wouldn't have done that. It's this modern society. Like, there's no justification for rape, but there are factors for it, clearly. But we want to, people are saying, let's shift out of the society. But a lot of you feminists, a lot of you women don't want to do that. Even though, this hyperactive, hyper stressful, hyper erotically charged, yet simultaneously sexually repressed society, those this overstimulation, it is a factor. But you support it and you maintain it. Right? It was not an issue. It wasn't happening. Okay. And then on top of that, it's like, I mean, that gets into my sort of other point. I wrote down enablers. You guys sort of act as enablers. Like you complain about all these things, but then you act like these um, enablers, like that. How this fight society is so corrupt, sick, and dysfunctional, but you guys don't want to leave it because you're addicted to it, and because you're comfortable with your status and your position, so you don't want anything to change because that might change. Yet you're still complaining and whining about all these other aspects of it, and it's like, but then there's other things where it's like, so many feminists and women cultists, a lot of you still sort of, you practically worship men. You know what I'm saying? So that's definitely going to enable and like reinforce things. Right? Men are, trashy. But then why are they held onto a pedestal? Okay. And then there's other aspects of that. Like look at Disney movies are basically patriarchal propaganda. Okay. But a lot of you indoctrinate your children in it. Like Beauty and the Beast, you probably should never date your kidnapper. And they were not human, but that was patriarchal propaganda. It's saying like settle for less, and it's framing like extreme primal toxic behavior as love. Like I guess that kidnapping was a nice sign of love, right? And you guys kind of see that in aspects of these other movies that you don't like 365, and even Twilight had very toxic sort of not narratives to it, but you guys are the biggest supporters of that. But like Ariel giving up their existence, who they are for a man, Snow White kissed unconsensually, but then you indoctrinate your kids on it. And yes, it does have an effect. clearly, because a lot of that's why like the divorce rate is so high, because you guys believe that your lives are going to play out like these Disney fairy tales, and when they don't, you get divorced. It's like how are you indoctrinating your children into patriarchal propaganda? Like it makes no sense. And I get it's like this cycle, right? But then it's like, why are you so? I mean, break it at this point. I'm sorry. Um, uh, break it. And then like that reminds me, like this whole self-tragedizing thing doesn't work. It's like I don't really care, especially like based in like in North America. It's like we have been massacring people in immoral warmongering wars. I mean, in immoral warmongering for quite a while now. Like, I don't really care what you whine about, including rape. It's like, uh, soldiers were raping people in Afghanistan and Iraq. We blew up weddings. We killed over 200,000 civilians. Like, I don't really care. It's like with black identified people, like they're killing our children. I don't care. How many children have we blown up? How many children did we massacre in Vietnam? How many children did we blow up in Africa, in Syria? How many children did we blow up in Iraq, in Afghanistan? There was women soldiers who blew up those weddings, and we say, "Oopsie, we didn't know it was a wedding." There was women at that wedding, you know, while they were on fire, and they grabbed their belly with that pregnant baby, with that baby in their belly that they're never going to get to see. It's like I don't care. Like how can you can't self tragedize yourself while while participating. You don't just participate. A lot of you also still worship the military, applaud them, and all this stuff. The stuff in the fourth. Like I don't care. Okay. Um. But then again, just this enabling. It's like, why can't you just break the cycle? Like I shouldn't be in this position where I'm questioning. Like it's like with black identified people. It's like there was other slave trades. There was an Arab slave trade. Why are you so easy to enslave? Like, are we gonna just hear about black identified whining forever? Why are you so easily enslaved? Why are you so easily exploited, women? Why are you so easily oppressed? Is something wrong with you? Like, I shouldn't be like the narrative like women were lesser than men. They're the subhuman. They're just lesser men, weaker men. Are you? I don't believe that you are, but I shouldn't be questioning it. Why are you so why are you so easy to exploit? You know the solution of slavery? Don't be enslaved. Don't be oppressed. Don't be exploited. That's the solution now. Don't be. And especially like with feminism, I can't. It's not a thing because you're 50% of the population. 50% of the population can't be oppressed or exploited. You're 50% of the population. It has to be consensual or voluntary on some level. It's just the same vibe as like those toxic relationships are a good sort of analogy or reflection of what's going on here, right? Society frames women in those sort of toxic, violent relationships as the poor little victim, which is not a thing. Like domestic abuse doesn't exist. Like domestic abuse, domestic that implies a house, that implies a door. So just walk out the door. Abuse, it can't be abuse. It's a consensual, voluntary relationship. That's just freestyle BDSM, right? Those women in these relationships, they're not oppressed little victims. They're addicted. They're addicts. They're addicted to toxic relationships. They're addicted to freestyle BDSM. And that's what's going on here. Obviously, it's like the same thing. It takes two to tango. You're 50% of the population. But then it's like, that's not even like this true thing because then there's benefits. Like before, I thought like with feminism, it was like this 90-10 thing. Like men had 90% power, women had 10. But now it's more like 60-40. I do think men still have, well, not anymore. I think it's like 50-50 now. Like those women in those relationships, they have access to domestic abuse shelters. The court's going to side with them. Society's going to side with them, even if they were antagonistic in the relationship, even though it's consensual. Like it makes no sense. If they have the kid, they will most likely get the kid. You'll get the money. Like you'll, what is it, child support? Like y'all are winning, actually. Like, and then another thing is like there's been too many sort of these out of step things, like with black identified people. Like Disney lightened Tiana, the princess, lighten her up, have this other history of like problematic things. I thought black identified people were gonna walk away. Like I stopped watching Disney movies in theaters, started avoiding Disney, and I thought I was doing it with other people, but no. Again, they didn't leave. And it's like the same thing, like there was this Game of Thrones show where there was like a rape scene because the show was basically rape porn for men. Um, and one of the creators said it became consensual. Like you guys are so, you cherry pick being concerned about this like influence from of media. Like that was a very toxic thing to say. You expected this exodus from the show, but you didn't because you're just spoiled, lazy brats. And the show was just too hyped and popular for you to walk away. You just pointed, like you didn't just point, you just recharged. It was like that weaponizing tragedy. Like, see how hard it is for us. Okay, if it was so bad, why did you just keep watching the show? That's the kind of things that you feminists and women cultists do. Like you want it all. You wanna have your cake and eat it too. Like it makes no sense. And it's like with like the tribal cast, there's just something sinister going on here because it's like people are setting up these webs. Like the tribal cast, they were like, there was some commentator, politician got fired because they said like something like there was nothing here, like in the Americas, there was nothing here when we got here, you know. But it's like, and then this tribal cast people got so upset about it, but that was, a lot of people believe that because that's what we learned, basically learned in school. We didn't learn that there was things here, but you see how they don't, they know that. They don't want to fix that. They don't want a solution. If it's such a concern, reform the education system so we learn about all the cultures and civilizations that were in ancient America. But they don't want that. They're leaving it as a trap. They want to be offended. They want to be victims. They want this tragedy. So because they were the main character for a second. Poor little Amerindians. Poor little romanticized American Indians. You know, whose originators got their asses kicked. Um, Poor little them, right? It's the same thing. People don't want all of these identity cults that weaponize tragedy and victimhood, don't want solutions because you guys sort of created this brand and institution and strategies around it. And then let me add one more because I have another one, but what should I call it? Pricks. When y'all are just pricks, like there's this whole narrative. You guys kind of push this damsel, innocent, delicate nymph thing. Um, but that it's just it's always this gaslighting manipulative feel because that's just not the case. Like, and again, it's not that women are pricks or women are bad people. It's just that you're people and people can be pricks which includes you, but you kind of want to opt out of that as if you're another thing. Like I remember I made a video like this before, but it was with different points. These are like updated points. But when that video wasn't received because they were almost offended as if the you they were like, how dare you accuse innocent poor little women of doing anything bad. It was like, what? Like, you're horrible because we're horrible. um like, you could never convince me. I just had so many horrible personal experiences with women, from having a very abusive mother, which is actually realizing very common, and like no one forced you to have a child, like, okay, but you know what I'm saying, to other little, just like situations that I remember. It's like one time I criticized, um I said something like, it was a member of One Direction. I said they were not a good singer, or I said they sing off key, and they did sing off key. And so one, you know, woman replied, "Drown in a lake." Like, I hate this like double standard of like women are treated like these Fabergé eggs, delicate little nymphs, babies. But I guess suggesting that a man commit suicide is okay. You don't tell someone to drown in a lake because they criticized an entertainer. And there was other things like that. There was like this famous person, Tyler Oakley. There was like this. They got into like this beef with a One Direction member because of a misunderstanding, like a reasonable misunderstanding. And there was like, they like a bunch of you women trended like, kill yourself, Tyler Oakley type of thing. You guys are constantly act like demonic harpies. So this, you question like, why do men hate us? It's because you, the biggest thing is like, you gaslight, you act innocent. You're not innocent. People suck. You know what I'm saying? But I have a lot of scenarios like that. I think a lot of men do, or just general thing. Like, and there's like this unique thing to it where it's like men are, of course, horrible assholes, but one difference is, it's like just for another example, I remember I walked into like a Bed Bath and Beyond, and I asked a worker, I'm like, do you guys sell mattresses here? This woman, she's like, no, let's like, but there's like this, it was like this, no. And I have other scenarios there too. Like, I remember walking into a convalescent home. I'm like, are you guys hiring? This woman was, she's like, no. Like, you guys feel almost like you perceive yourself as like these delicate, innocent little baby nymphs or something, where you feel like entitled to act mean and assholes, which is hurtful. Like, no, 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 no. But then, and then just to backtrack a little bit, it's like there's this, with this delicate, this innocent nymph persona. It's like, which also kind of melds into women's supremacy. It's like, this not never hit women thing, right? Which is, so you want special treatment, you want immunity for your behavior. Why don't you simply not hit a guy, and then they won't hit you? Like, if we're talking about in the context of self-defense, never hit women no matter what. If a woman is trying to hit me with a hammer, I'm gonna uppercut her. Okay? You simply do not hit another man. But you see how women are demanding like this status of a baby, because it's more tolerated to hit a kid than it is to hit a woman. Spanking and all these different things. So if you're demanding never to be hit, you're demanding the status of a baby, right? If a kid hits you or acts bad, you'll hit them, but probably not a baby. So you want the status of a baby. That's how innocent and delicate you are. But at the same time, you're demanding to be president and to be in military combat roles. You celebrate it, you're excited about it. You want to be firefighters, you want to be police officers. These are very demanding, tough, sometimes violent positions and roles. How can you simultaneously be like these badass warrior queens, but also these delicate, innocent, cheer up nymph babies at the same time, simultaneously? Military combat, special military combat units let us in, never hit women. Poor little women. You hit a woman. You pushed a woman. How horrible. You guys are both. It's like you're cherry picking patriarchy. Like patriarchy, which maintains patriarchy. Like you're cherry picking, maintaining patriarchy, and you want women's supremacy. Like this makes no sense. Like all of these narratives, like sometimes you'll see patriarchal men support this never hit women narrative. It's not benevolent, it's infantilizing women. It's the same thing as chivalry, opening the door for you, which implies you can't open the door for yourself. Paying for women don't pay on dates, which is infantilization. That's because you couldn't work. You had no access to money. It's saying I'm going to be the parent and you're going to be the child in the relationship. Which you want to keep all those things. You want to cherry pick patriarchy, but then you're also saying like you want to be in all of these positions of influence and power and combat roles and tough positions. How can you be a firefighter, wood slabs falling on you? Women are super strong and super delicate simultaneously as some type of strategy. Hell no. And then lastly, abortion. Way too many feminists, way too many women cultists support abortion. And I can admit I used to support abortion, but one analogy, sort of metaphor, changed my position on it, where it was like someone basically like if a woman is pregnant and she is mugged and she loses the baby, should that person be charged with manslaughter? It's the natural response, intuitively, whatever you want to call it, is yes, right? That person will be charged with, assault on the woman, mugging, stealing, and like manslaughter or first degree murder, right? Punched her in the stomach and she lost the baby. Why is it murder when they do it, but not murder when you do it? It makes no sense. Either don't, if a man attacks a pregnant woman and they lose the baby, they shouldn't be charged for any type of manslaughter, killing, murder type of charge, if that's the case. Like, how does it suddenly change, suddenly flip? And the worst thing about it, again, it's like I don't feel like it's because of health or the convenience. It's getting to this position where it's about power tripping, where it's like you have like you're power tripping that you can get away with murder. Like women are so special, they can kill babies. That's what you like about it. That's why you want to maintain abortion. Not just because it's like you weaponize sex as like this currency or tool of influence and control. And pregnancy sort of makes that inconvenient. So you just kill the babies. But it's that it started as that, but then it was like, wait, we're really getting away with murder. It's like you're power tripping. Like there was this guy who sniped an elephant, like this dentist. They didn't want to hunt. They wanted to prove their status. They wanted to, it was for validation. They were trying to confirm or prove it was a power trip move to, confirm or validate their all powerful status, their special status. Like, I can get away with this type of thing. Yes, I can do it. Like this deity defiance. Like, and that's what a lot of feminist and women cultures are doing. You guys just are addicted to like this false sense of glory. And um, just this weird deity thing, which is not surprising because all of this media and politicians and women call this propaganda. Like you become high on your own propaganda. You're so special. You're so this. You're so innocent. Look how hard and terrible things are for you, even though you are the cause of that environment that produces it. Poor little you. Of course you should deserve to do abortions. Like none of this makes sense. It's just um insane, and it's not again not about women. Every single identity cult is doing this. Like I I can't believe I observed it and witnessed it, but there was like this white coated person who I think they drunk drive and they killed like 5 people. Why? And they were like they tried to run to Mexico and like people citizens actively observe it, police it, like because the people were like being lax about it. Like they were doing the job. I'm sorry, but they were doing the job of the police, of law enforcement. But a lot of white identified people were getting mad about it. That's how special they think that you are. Like, or like how that famous entertainer was like, yeah, I hunted black identified people, and all these white identified people were like, you're so brave. It's like, yes, the media, society, religion tells you that you're special, but you're not. And it's like that with all these other identity cults. I remember arguing with a black identified person, and they were like, yeah, I know what it's like, as if their lives are so horrible and tragic. Poor little black identified people. No, you're like, you need to make poor choices. Like, that's it. You're not a victim in any way. Police brutality doesn't exist. You just commit a disproportionate amount of crime. Like, and there's like an insane thing there. Like, all TV shows have become propaganda where people believe like it's going to work. Like, these black identified people think these TV shows like black superheroes are going to work, but it's not. People still think you're horrible, and some of it is earned. Yes, some of the reputation is manufactured, but some of it is just earned. We're just horrible people. We're corrupt, spoiled, split brats. It's like we're a lot of us just living these double lives, right? We have our shadow selves, and then we have our, you know, these savior personas, these mater personas, right? I almost vomited when there was like this. I don't know. There's what's that show? Kamala. I don't know. Women superhero movies. I'm a superhero. None of us are superheroes. um, it's going to our heads. All of this, like, it's not a coincidence. This sort of explosion in superhero shows. It's because we're slowly being exposed as the sort of toxic, corrupt, shadowy creatures that we are. So we're kind of overcompensating, kind of self pushing ourselves, self deluding ourselves. That we're like either poor little innocent babies or strong, benevolent superhero saviors. When we're like all just pretty much, you know, trashy entities.